The champagne tower was the first lie I spotted, and it certainly wasn't the biggest one in the room. It stood 5 feet tall, a precarious pyramid of crystal flutes filled with vintage Dom Perignon, catching the light of the chandeliers in the grand ballroom of my parents' estate. It looked structurally sound, sparkling and perfect, but I knew my mother. She would have used a stabilizing glue on the bottom glasses, a hidden adhesive to ensure that no matter how much the floor shook or the guests stumbled, her illusion of perfection wouldn't shatter. That was the theme of the night. That was the theme of the last 50 years. I adjusted the sleeves of my black blazer, conscious of how stark I looked against the sea of cream, gold, and pastel that filled the room. My mother, Eleanor, had specified Gilded Age glamour on the invitations. I had chosen cybersecurity specialist burnout chic. I stood in the corner near a massive floral arrangement of white hydrangeas, watching the crowd. 200 of Connecticut's elite were here to celebrate the golden anniversary of Richard and Eleanor Sterling. To the world, they were philanthropists, pillars of the community, and the definition of an enduring love story. To me, they were the people who sent me to boarding school at 7 because I asked too many questions, and who looked at me with a mixture of disappointment and fear every time I came home. "Chloe, darling, you look intense." I turned to see my mother drifting toward me. She was 72 but looked 50, thanks to a strict diet of kale, bitterness, and very expensive plastic surgery. Her gold sequined gown swished softly against the marble floor. "Hello, Mother. Happy anniversary." She offered her cheek, and I leaned in, careful not to actually touch her skin. She smelled like Chanel No. 5 and cold metal. "I'm surprised you came," she said, her voice dropping to that hushed tone she used when she wanted to insult you without the waiters hearing. "I thought you were busy in the city, hacking banks or whatever it is you do."
"I protect banks from being hacked, Mother, and I wouldn't miss this. 50 years is a long time to keep a story straight." Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes hardened. "Behave yourself tonight, Chloe. Senator Thorne is here. The press is outside. Do not drink too much, do not start debates about politics, and for the love of God, stay away from the catering staff. We had to fire the last agency because they were incompetent." "What did they do?" I asked, scanning the room. "Put the wrong garnish on the crab cakes?" "They were snooping," she snapped, a little too quickly. "Wandering where they didn't belong. Just enjoy the party."
She glided away to greet a judge, leaving a trail of tension in her wake. I took a sip of the champagne. It tasted expensive and hollow. I hadn't come here to celebrate. I had come because 3 days ago, I received a notification on my server. I'm a digital security consultant. My life is built on patterns, anomalies, and encryptions. Years ago, mostly out of boredom and a little bit of paranoia, I had backdoored into my parents' home security system. I never really looked at it. Watching my father fall asleep in front of Fox News wasn't exactly thrilling content, but I had set up an alert for System Offline. 3 days ago, the camera feed for the garden house, the small Victorian-style guest cottage at the far end of the property, had gone black for 12 seconds, then rebooted. When it came back online, the timestamp was glitching. The garden house had been condemned for black mold since I was 5 years old. It was the forbidden zone. We were told the air quality inside would make us sick. The windows were boarded up from the inside, covered with heavy shutters on the outside. Vines had been allowed to overgrow the door, making it look abandoned. But security cameras don't reboot themselves unless someone updates the firmware or cuts the power. And why would a condemned building filled with mold need a state-of-the-art military-grade security camera aimed at the interior door? I set my glass down. The party was in full swing. A string quartet was playing a sterile version of a Beatles song. My father, Richard, was near the bar, laughing too loudly at a joke that wasn't funny. He looked tired. His tuxedo fit perfectly, but his skin was gray. The look of a man who has been carrying a heavy weight for half a century. I slipped out of the ballroom through the French doors that led to the terrace. The November air was biting, cutting through my blazer. The estate was massive. 4 acres of manicured lawns, topiaries, and stone fountains. Down the hill, past the rose garden, the silhouette of the garden house stood against the moonlit sky. It looked like a dark bruise on the pristine landscape. I didn't go there directly. That would be amateur. I walked the perimeter, staying in the shadows of the hedges. As I got closer, I saw a figure standing near the entrance of the cottage. It was a large man, dressed in a generic security uniform, but he wasn't one of the event's staff. He wasn't watching the party, he was watching the door of the cottage. My mother had hired a private guard for a storage shed? I crouched behind a stone bench, pulling out my phone. I synced it to my laptop, which was currently running a program in the trunk of my rental car, parked down the driveway. I needed to see what that camera saw. The Wi-Fi on the estate was strong. My father demanded high speeds for his stock trading, but the encryption on the garden house feed was different. It was isolated, air-gapped. "Come on," I whispered, my fingers flying across the virtual keyboard on my screen. The guard lit a cigarette. The flare of the lighter illuminated his face, bored, heavy-set. He checked his watch. I bypassed the firewall. It wasn't standard residential security. This was custom code. Whoever set this up knew what they were doing, or they had paid someone a lot of money to keep people out. But they hadn't updated their patch in 6 months. That was my way in. The screen on my phone flickered, then stabilized. I was looking through the camera lens inside the garden house. I expected to see piles of old furniture, boxes of tax records, maybe the black mold my mother terrified us with. Instead, I saw a room. It was clean, sterile, actually. There was a bed bolted to the floor, a shelf with soft-cover books, a television encased in plexiglass mounted on the wall, and in the center of the room, sitting at a small round table, was a man. I stopped breathing. He looked to be about 40. He had thinning hair and wore a simple gray tracksuit. He was rocking back and forth slightly, methodically, focusing on a jigsaw puzzle on the table. He placed a piece, then clapped his hands together softly. He looked like my father. The nose, the jawline. It was undeniably sterling blood. My mind raced back to the family tree. I was an only child. My parents always said they were blessed with one miracle. There were no cousins, no uncles on my father's side. I zoomed in on the feed. On the wall behind the man, there was a calendar. It was marked with daily X's. Next to it was a drawing, crude, crayon on paper, of a house. Our house. "Who are you?" I whispered to the screen. The man in the video looked up, straight at the camera, as if he heard me. His eyes were wide, innocent, and filled with a profound, crushing loneliness. He didn't look dangerous. He looked trapped. A noise behind me made me freeze. "You're not supposed to be out here, Miss Sterling." I stood up slowly and turned. The guard had moved faster than a man his size should be able to. He was 10 feet away, one hand resting on his belt, near a taser. "I was just getting some air," I said, my voice steady. "Nostalgia."
I used to play hide and seek out here." "Area's unsafe," he grunted. "Mold. You know the rules." "Right, the mold." I took a step back toward the main house. I should get back for the toasts anyway. My mother will kill me if I miss the speeches. He didn't relax until I was halfway up the hill. I could feel his eyes boring into my back. I didn't run, though every instinct in my body screamed at me to sprint. I walked calmly back into the light, back into the music, back into the lie. I went straight to the bar and ordered a double bourbon meat. I needed to think. Who was he? Why was he there? And then the math hit me. My parents had been married 50 years. I was 32. There was an 18-year gap where they struggled to conceive. Or maybe they didn't struggle. Maybe they succeeded, and the result didn't fit the picture. I scanned the room for my father. He was cornered by the senator, nodding vaguely. I moved toward him, intercepting him as he tried to escape toward the buffet. "Dad." He jumped slightly. "Chloe! God, you sneak up on people, just like your mother." "We need to talk." "Not now, honey. The speeches are in 10 minutes. Your mother has a whole slideshow prepared." "It's about the garden house," I said. The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might faint. He gripped his glass until his knuckles turned white. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I saw him, Dad, on the camera." He looked around frantically, terrified that the senator or the judge or, God forbid, his wife would hear. He grabbed my arm and pulled me into the hallway, near the coat check. "You have to stop," he hissed. His voice was trembling. "You don't understand." "I understand that there is a human being locked in a shed in our backyard. Who is he?" My father's eyes filled with tears. He's your brother, Thomas." The world tilted. "My brother? You told me I was an only child. You told me—" "He was born different," my father whispered, the words rushing out now that the dam had broken. 45 years ago. Things were different then, Chloe. Your mother, she had just started her charitable foundation. We were climbing the social ladder. Thomas, he has severe autism and complications. He was loud, he was difficult. The doctors said he should be institutionalized. So you put him in a shed? I felt bile rising in my throat. It's not a shed. It's a fully furnished apartment. He has heat, food, caretakers. We kept him safe. You kept him hidden, I hissed. Because he embarrassed her? Because he didn't look good in a Christmas card? She couldn't handle the shame, he admitted, looking at the floor. She convinced herself it was better for him. Quiet, no scaring eyes. She said she was protecting him from the cruelty of the world. She is the cruelty of the world, I said. Chloe, please. Tonight, it's her night. If this comes out, it destroys everything. The foundation, the reputation, the legacy. The legacy is a lie, Dad. A 50-year-old lie. Please, he begged. Just let us get through the night. We can talk about it tomorrow. At that moment, the ballroom doors swung open. My mother stood there, a microphone in her hand, beaming under the spotlight. Ladies and gentlemen, if everyone could please take their seats, we have a very special presentation to celebrate 5 decades of love, loyalty, and family. The guests applauded. My father wiped his eyes, straightened his tie, and put his mask back on. Please, Chloe, he whispered one last time before walking back into the ballroom to stand by his wife. I stood in the hallway. I could hear my mother's voice amplifying over the speakers. When Richard and I started this journey, we had nothing but a dream of a perfect life
built on transparency and grace. Transparency. I looked at my phone. I still had the feed. I still had the connection. I looked at the audio-visual booth set up in the back of the ballroom. A young guy in a headset was managing the slideshow. The projector was connected to a laptop. I'm a cybersecurity specialist. I protect systems. But sometimes, to protect the right things, you have to burn the system down. I walked into the ballroom. I didn't go to my seat. I moved along the back wall toward the AV booth. The tech guy was focused on the stage. "Excuse me," I said. He jumped. "Whoa, miss, you can't be back here." "I'm the daughter, Chloe Sterling. My mother asked me to upload one last photo for the montage. It's a surprise for my dad." I smiled. It was the Sterling smile. Charming, disarming, fake. He hesitated. "She didn't tell me?" "It's the golden anniversary," I said, leaning in. "Do you really want to be the one to tell Eleanor Sterling you said no to her daughter?" He swallowed hard. "Okay, do it fast. The montage starts in 2 minutes." He stepped aside. I plugged my phone into the auxiliary HDMI port on the console. "Just dragging the file over," I lied. On stage, my mother was wrapping up her intro. "We have shared every triumph, every sorrow, and every truth. We have no secrets from each other, or from you, our dearest friends." I tapped my screen. I bypassed the slideshow software and hijacked the main feed. I pulled up the live stream from the garden house. "And now," my mother said, gesturing to the massive screen behind her, "a look back at our beautiful life." The lights dimmed. The string quartet fell silent. And on the 20-foot screen, the image didn't show a wedding photo from 1974. It showed a grainy, live feed of a gray room. The room was silent. A few people squinted. "Is this art?" someone whispered. Then, on the screen, Thomas moved. He stood up from his puzzle and walked to the plexiglass window, pressing his hand against it. He looked confused. My mother froze. She didn't turn around at first. She just saw the look on the faces of the front row, the senator, the judge. Their jaws were dropping. "What is this?" my mother asked, her voice trembling into the microphone. She turned, and she screamed. It wasn't a scream of fear. It was a scream of rage, a primal, guttural sound of a predator whose camouflage had been ripped away. "Turn it off!" she shrieked, pointing at the booth. "Turn it off right now!" The tech guy panicked, jamming buttons, but I had locked the interface. The image stayed. Thomas pacing in his cage. The room erupted. Murmurs turned into shouts. "Who is that? Is that a prison? He looks like Richard." I stepped out from the booth and walked into the center of the aisle. The spotlight caught me.
"That," I said, my voice carrying clearly over the chaos, "is Thomas Sterling, the eldest son, the one who didn't fit the brochure." My mother looked at me. If looks could kill, I would have disintegrated on the spot. "You ungrateful, spiteful little—" "He's been in the garden house for 40 years, mother. While you threw charity galas for orphans in other countries, you kept your own son in a box because he had autism?" "He is sick," she yelled, losing all composure. Her mask shattered completely. "He is dangerous. We protected him." "No," I said calmly. "You protected yourself." I looked at my father. He was sitting on the edge of the stage, head in his hands, weeping openly. He was done. "Richard!" my mother barked. "Do something!" But Richard didn't move. The senator stood up. He looked at the screen, then at my mother. He didn't say a word. He just turned and walked toward the exit. That was the signal. The dam broke. The guests, the elite, The people whose validation my mother craved more than air began to flee. They didn't want to be near the blast radius of this scandal.
"Where are you going?" my mother cried out to them. "Don't look at that! It's a lie! It's a deep fake! Chloe is mentally unstable!" But nobody stopped. I turned to the AV guy. "Keep it running. If you cut the feed, I'll release your browser history to the internet." He took his hands off the console and stepped back, terrified. I turned and walked out the French doors, back into the cold night air. The illusion inside was dissolving into screaming and crying, but out here, it was quiet. I walked down the hill to the garden house. The guard was standing there, confused, his radio buzzing with frantic shouting from the house. "Open it," I said. "I can't do that, miss." "Look at the house," I pointed. "The party is over. The police are coming. Do you really want to be the guy holding the key to the kidnapping victim's cell when the cops arrive? Or do you want to be the guy who opened the door?" He looked at the main house, where guests were streaming out to their cars. He looked at me. He made a calculation. He pulled a key card from his belt and swiped the lock. Click. The heavy door groaned open. The smell hit me first. Not mold, but stale air and antiseptic cleaner. I walked in. Thomas was standing by the table. He flinched when I entered, pulling his arms into his chest. "It's okay," I said softly. "I'm Chloe. I'm your sister." He tilted his head. He didn't speak, but he looked at me with those same wide eyes I had seen on the screen. He reached out and touched the fabric of my blazer. "Sister?" he croaked. The voice was unused, raspy. "Yeah," I said, blinking back tears I didn't know I had. "We're leaving, Thomas. We're going for a ride." "Outside?" he asked. "Yeah, outside." I led him out. He hesitated at the threshold, looking at the grass like it was lava. I held out my hand. He took it. His grip was strong, desperate. We walked up the hill, bypassing the chaos of the main house. I could see flashing lights turning into the driveway, police, probably called by the neighbors or the senator. My mother was standing on the terrace, alone. The ballroom behind her was empty. She watched us walk toward my car. She looked small, shrunken. The golden anniversary had turned into lead. She didn't try to stop us. She knew it was over. The court cases, the media circus, the ruin. It was all waiting for her tomorrow. I opened the passenger door of my rental car. Thomas climbed in, looking at the dashboard, the buttons, the world through the windshield with pure wonder. I got in the driver's seat and started the engine. "Where go?" Thomas asked, watching the headlights cut through the darkness. "Anywhere," I said. "Absolutely anywhere." I drove past the gate, past the departing luxury cars, and onto the main road. I rolled the window down. The air smelled like snow and freedom. For the first time in my life, the Sterling family had no secrets. The glass house had shattered, and we were the only ones who made it out without getting cut. Family isn't about whose blood you share, or how long your parents have been married, or how perfect your Christmas card looks. Family is about who unlocks the door when you're trapped. It's about who tells you the truth when the whole world is lying. I looked over at Thomas. He was smiling. His hand held out the window, feeling the wind against his palm for the first time in 40 years. I smiled too. And if you've ever felt like the black sheep, or if you suspect your family is hiding more than just skeletons in the closet, you aren't alone. Truth has a way of coming out, usually when people least expect it. If you enjoyed this story of secrets and justice, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I release new stories every day that peel back the layers of the perfect lives we see on the surface. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a chapter. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.